My name is Leanna Prescott. I'm 29 years old, and tonight my family is pretending I don't exist. I stared at my brother's message, the words sharp and sour as vinegar. Don't come to Dad's 65th. You've made enough of a mess. Let us celebrate in peace. Classic Daniel. Guardian of the Prescott image. Self-appointed heir to the empire. Tonight's event was set at the Anchorage Marina Club in Seattle, where tech founders, political donors, and old money titans would raise their glasses to toast my father, Gregory Prescott. Visionary, CEO, and, according to the city, an institution. But heaven forbid the guests find out that his so-called failure of a daughter was now the reason his company hadn't collapsed. Another message buzzed in. Daniel's right, my stepmother Marlene chimed in. Tonight is about your father's legacy. Don't disrupt that. Disrupt, that's what they called my decision to walk away from Prescott Dynamics at 24. I was offered a shiny VP title, a Lakeview office, and a company BMW. Everything the Prescott name could buy. I said no. I wanted to build something that didn't rely on my father's shadow. No one asked what I was building, no one cared. I turned my gaze to the wall behind my desk, where the latest Wired magazine cover hung in a minimalist frame. The Silent Revolution, How Leanna Prescott is Powering the Future, it read. Below was a photo of me, hair pulled back, lab coat open over a dark turtleneck, standing next to a prototype core. What the article didn't reveal was that I'd used my mother's surname, Leanna Wren, the name no one in my father's circle remembered. The daughter who turned her back on a golden path had become the woman reshaping the energy infrastructure of smart vehicles across North America. Tonight, that secret would end. My phone rang. Everything's ready, said Ava Singh, COO of Solstice Labs, my company. You still want to go through with the announcement at the marina? I smiled, imagining the look on my father's face when he learned that the elusive CEO his team had been trying to meet for over a year was the daughter he once called a distracted tinkerer. Yes, I said, I want him to find out when the whole room does. Ava chuckled. Even better, Julian Webb from Ridgepoint Capital asked for you personally. They're moving forward with the joint venture, and your dad's going to hear it from the stage. Of course he was. Prescott Dynamics had been trying to land Ridgepoint's backing for months. Without it, they'd fall behind in every EV contract race they were still clinging to. And Ridgepoint wouldn't do the deal without Solstice Labs Energy Systems. Without me. I slipped into a simple black sheath dress. No glittering designer gown like the ones I knew Marlene and my half-sister Cassandra would flaunt tonight. Just sleek lines and quiet confidence. Around my neck I fastened my mother's old necklace. A brass infinity symbol, dulled with age but warm with memory. By the time I arrived, the marina was glowing under strings of Edison bulbs. The ballroom was packed, laughter rising in waves between glasses of champagne and strategically placed donor placards. I stayed by the entrance until I heard Julian Webb take the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, I have the honor of announcing a new energy partnership that will revolutionize the smart vehicle market. Ridgepoint Capital is proud to co-lead this initiative with a company you'll be hearing a lot more about, Solstice Labs. There were murmurs. My father leaned forward at the head table, brows furrowing. My brother Daniel was already whispering to someone, calculating. Julian continued. The founder and CEO is here with us tonight, Leanna Wren. Would you join me on stage? The crowd parted like the sea. I stepped forward. The silence was instant. Gregory Prescott's jaw locked. Daniel looked like he'd swallowed his tie. Cassandra blinked, slow and stunned. Even Marlene dropped her champagne flute. And me? I just smiled and walked into the spotlight. She gave it to me just weeks before she passed, when I was still the daughter my father beamed about at fundraisers and investor galas. Follow your instincts, Leanna, my mother had said softly as she clasped the brass infinity pendant around my neck. Even if it leads you away from where they think you belong. The words echoed in my memory as my car pulled up to the valet circle outside the Anchorage Marina Club. Through the arched windows, the birthday celebration was in full swing. Crystal chandeliers glowing above Seattle's elite. Venture capitalists, board members, tech press, and a dozen executives who still thought my last name was synonymous with irrelevance. The gold script banner announced, "Happy 65th, Gregory Prescott," hanging just above the bandstand. At the entrance, my brother's wife Camille stood holding an iPad, managing the guest list with all the precision of someone auditioning for socialite royalty. Her brows lifted when she saw me. "Liana," she whispered, eyes darting. Daniel said you were not to come. He told security." "Good evening, Mrs. Prescott," I cut in with quiet poise. "I believe I'm expected." She blinked, fumbled with her iPad. "Expected? That can't be right." "Check again," I offered gently. "Mr. Julian Webb's office called ahead." Camille's fingers trembled slightly as she tapped. Then her expression shifted. "Oh, yes. It's here. He specifically asked for. How did you—" But I was already walking through the doors, past the stunned expression she couldn't mask. The room hadn't changed. Still the same forced smiles, back patting, and names dropped like confetti. It smelled of ambition and aged wine. At the bar, Marlene stood draped in diamonds and champagne silk, laughing too loudly at something a politician said. Cassandra, my half-sister, twirled a curl around her finger while clinging to a junior CTO from Raintech like he was her +1 and her resume. Daniel saw me next. His jaw tightened. He moved quickly, his path cutting clean through the crowd like a blade. "What part of stay away didn't you understand?" he growled low. "Hello to you too, brother," I said calmly, scanning the crowd. "Lovely decor. Dad must be proud." "Security will be here in 90 seconds. Don't start something." I checked my watch. "That's fine. Julian Webb will be here in 30. And he requested I be here for the announcement." Daniel's mouth twitched. "Julian Webb? What would Ridgepoint's chairman want with you?" Right then, the room shifted. The kind of ripple that only happens when true power enters a space. Julian Webb had arrived. At 65, he didn't need to raise his voice or wear designer suits with logos screaming status. His reputation did all the talking. Ridgepoint Capital managed over $90 billion. 0 cents in assets, and tonight, everyone knew a major partnership announcement was coming. The whispers had been growing all week. My father surged forward with perfect timing, hand outstretched, ready for a photo op. "Julian, what a pleasure, really. Thank you for coming to my birthday." Julian smiled politely. "Gregory, quite the gathering you've arranged." Then his eyes moved across the room, skimming investors, influencers, and execs before landing squarely on me. "There she is," he said. The air stalled. The band missed a note. The clinking of champagne glasses stopped cold. Julian walked right past my father, arm extended. "Miss Wren, Liana, it's an honor to finally meet you in person." For one exquisite second, the silence felt alive, like the room itself had to inhale and didn't know how. My father's smile faltered. Daniel looked like he'd just watched the stock market crash. Marlene set down her glass. Cassandra froze, mid-laugh. "I believe congratulations are in order," Julian added. "Your team at Solstice Labs has built something extraordinary. Ridgepoint is thrilled to begin our partnership." I shook his hand with steady calm. "Thank you, the honor's mine." And across the room my father's face collapsed from surprise to confusion to something far paler. In that moment I realized it wasn't rejection that had shaped me. It was distance. The space I gave myself to grow, where they thought nothing would bloom. And now they would all have to watch it flower. Daniel's mouth hung open, the threat of security long forgotten. I don't understand," my father stammered, voice hoarse. "You know her?" Julian Webb's eyes glimmered with restrained amusement. "Know her?" he echoed. "Gregory, your daughter is arguably the most visionary mind in smart energy today." He paused to scan the room, where gasps were slowly beginning to build beneath a heavy silence. "Though," he added, tone light, "from the looks on everyone's faces, I gather no one realized that Liana Wren and Liana Prescott are the same person." Marlene's champagne flute slipped from her hand, exploding in a quiet crash against the marble floor. It snapped the room back into motion. "That's not possible," Daniel blurted, stepping forward like he could undo what he'd just witnessed. "Liana's been doing nothing since she left the company." "I've been building Solstice Labs," I replied, calm and steady. "That nothing you mention? It's now valued at $4,200,000,000. 0 cents. My father reached for the back of a chair, his grip visibly shaking. "Solstice," he whispered. "The battery systems, the software powering the new autonomous fleets." "Yes, Dad," I said. "That mysterious CEO you've been trying to meet for the past year? The one whose technology could have saved Prescott Dynamics?" I tilted my head slightly, letting the moment land. "You raised her." Julian cleared his throat. "Speaking of which," he said, turning back to the stunned room. "Shall we proceed with the announcement?" "Wait," my father said, his palm raised, panic flashing in his eyes. "What announcement?" Julian glanced to me, and I took it from there. "Ridgepoint Capital's partnership with Solstice Labs," I said, keeping my gaze steady on my father and brother. "We've agreed to acquire a controlling interest in Prescott Dynamics. The paperwork was finalized this afternoon." A murmur spread like wildfire. Forks clinked against plates. Someone gasped audibly. Daniel's face turned a blotchy shade of crimson. "You can't do this," he barked. "You can't just take over our company." Julian raised a brow. "Actually, we can, and we are." He turned to the crowd. "Solstice's energy tech is the foundation of nearly every innovation in next-gen transportation. Everyone in this room wants in, but Miss Prescott, excuse me, Miss Wren, insisted her family's company get the first right of refusal." Marlene stepped forward now, her polished calm finally cracking. "Gregory, you can't let her take control," she pleaded. "She'll ruin everything we built." I gave a quiet, bitter laugh. "Everything you built?" I echoed. "You mean the company that's bled market share for 4 straight quarters? The one heading toward insolvency because no one in leadership would acknowledge electric technology as the future?" I let my voice soften, not out of weakness but finality. "That company?" My father's carefully managed expression collapsed. No more charisma, no more pride, just a man trying to grasp something long gone. "Liana," he said, "please, we can talk about this. You don't have to do it this way." "Now you want to talk?" I stepped closer, my voice low, my heart unshaking. 5 years ago, I showed you a prototype. You told me to stop playing engineer and go learn real business. When I brought you my pitch deck, Daniel called it a school project. And when I told you I was leaving to start my own lab, Marlene said I was abandoning the family. I turned to the room, to all the people who'd once looked through me. "You all wrote me off. You couldn't see past the fact that I wasn't trying to replicate you. I wasn't supposed to succeed, but I did." Julian gave a nod. "And now she owns the patents, the talent, and the platform that could rebuild Prescott Dynamics from the ground up." My father closed his eyes. For the first time, he looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. "And Gregory," Julian added, "you should be proud. Not every man can say he raised the woman who just saved his legacy." I looked at my father one last time. "I didn't come back to destroy what you built. I came to prove I could build something better." And this time, no one had anything left to say. If you believe in quiet strength, second chances, and the power of building your own path, subscribe to the channel. Liana's story isn't over yet, and in the next part, the boardroom will face a truth they can't ignore. Julian Webb observed quietly as years of family tension unraveled before him. His expression held interest, not just in the deal, but in the personal reckoning unfolding before his eyes. "The time for talking was then," I continued, my voice steady. "Now is the time to save what's left of Prescott Dynamics." I turned toward my father. "You need our technology, and I'm offering it. The only question is whether you're ready to accept that your biggest disappointment is now your only hope." Cassandra, who had been uncharacteristically silent until now, finally found her voice. "But all those times we invited you to family events and you said you were too busy." "I was busy," I answered gently, Building a company takes time, but none of you ever asked what I was building, did you? Too busy assuming I was failing to imagine I might be succeeding. Julian stepped forward and opened a navy folder. The papers are ready, Gregory. Solstice Labs will acquire a 60% stake in Prescott Dynamics. He glanced at me, and Leon will take over as CEO, implementing her energy transition strategy across all divisions. My father's voice was barely above a whisper. And if I refuse? Then we'll take Solstice's technology to your competitors, I said simply. I'm sure they'll be more than thrilled. Daniel grabbed our father's arm, panic flaring. Dad, you can't seriously consider this. Be quiet, Daniel, my father said suddenly, cutting him off. The room fell silent. He turned to me, really seeing me for the first time in years. The battery systems, the patents, the modular grid, it's all yours? I nodded. Every design, every line of code. I opened my phone. While you were mourning what you thought was a failure, I was reshaping the industry this company refused to join. He scrolled through the files, and I saw it. The moment realization rewrote his version of history. His eyes welled. Save it, I said gently. We can talk later. Right now, we need to save your company. I paused. So, are you ready to listen to your embarrassment of a daughter? Julian held out a pen. The room froze. My father's hand trembled slightly as he signed. Quietly, decisively. A sharp breath escaped Marlene's lips. Daniel turned away, fists clenched. But none of it mattered now. Ladies and gentlemen, Julian announced, please join me in congratulating the new CEO of Prescott Solstice Energy, Miss Liana Prescott. The applause was scattered, hesitant. My father stood beside me, silent and stunned. Daniel stormed out, dragging Camille with him. Marlene's polished expression cracked beneath her makeup. And yet, around my neck, my mother's brass pendant, the infinity symbol, seemed to glow warmer. I had followed my instincts, just as she told me, and it led me back here, not as the obedient daughter they wanted, but as the leader I became. Later that evening, I stood alone on the terrace. My father joined me. That night you left, he said. You tried to show me your designs. I wouldn't even look. No, I said, you wouldn't. I was wrong, he said softly. About everything. Can you forgive me? I touched the pendant, thinking of all I had built through rejection and resolve. That depends, I said. Are you ready to learn from your daughter? He nodded. Teach me. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't proving others wrong. It's proving yourself right. And sometimes you get the chance to rebuild, but this time on your own terms. The next morning, I stepped through the doors as CEO. The old motto still hung, powering tomorrow's world. Soon it would say, innovation runs in the family. Eventually, on my desk sat a small package, my mother's old engineering textbook, bookmarked to a handwritten note, for Liana, who will change the world her own way. And I had, just not the way anyone expected. If you've ever been told you weren't enough or watched your worth be overlooked, then you understand my journey. Leave a comment, share your story, and if you believe in quiet strength and rising on your terms, hit subscribe. Your light matters, and when it shines, the right people will notice.